The Desert Eagle. It's an iconic weapon, and it feels like it's been featured in nearly every movie and video game ever, including Fallout 1 and 2. Unfortunately, the Deagle never made it into any of the 3D Fallout games, but such a popular weapon has to have an excellent mod adding it to Fallout 4, right? Right? No. Every mod that adds Desert Eagles to Fallout 4 has problems. I looked at 8 mods, I'm listing them on screen right now, and if there's a weapon pack out there somewhere containing a better Desert Eagle than these, I'm sorry for not finding it because all 8 mods ended up being flawed at best. But the least flawed would have to be the recently released Magnum Autoloader Desert Eagle Another Millenia mod, as long as you get the Munitions version. The non-Munitions version has a nasty issue you probably don't want to deal with. Most people have already moved over to Munitions by now anyways, so it's not a big deal. The rest of these mods might be worth looking at if you don't want to use Munitions, but they range from mediocre to terrible. With recommendations dispensed with, let's examine each of these mods in detail. First up is my recommended mod, the Magnum Autoloader Desert Eagle Another Millenia, a very recent mod from just this month. It has both Munitions and vanilla versions. There's no unique variants or pre-placed spawns of this weapon, but it does have leveled list injection. You can find it on Brotherhood soldiers, gunners, raider bosses, and vendors, starting around level 12. This gun has a nice looking model, an excellent scratched up texture, good sounds, and great custom first person animations. In third person, it uses deliverer animations both in and out of power armor. Unfortunately, the third-person model doesn't work well with classic holstered weapons. Only the magazine, trigger, and hammer are visible. I can deal with that, but much worse is what I will call the broken bash problem from now on. It's the exact same issue the World War II Colt M1911A1 has. This gun's bash kill cams cancel immediately, and whatever enemy you're targeting takes no damage. Luckily, only the vanilla version of the mod has this problem. The Munitions version seems unaffected by this bug. I don't know why, but that's how it is. As far as balance goes, this weapon is a bit overpowered, but to be fair, so are all the Desert Eagles on this list. The closest vanilla equivalent to this weapon is the 44 pistol, and of course a semi-automatic pistol is going to beat out a slow single-action revolver every time. Perhaps more recoil or a higher action point cost could help balance it out, but this mod's Deagle actually has about the same recoil as the 44 pistol and far lower AP requirements, while maintaining a similar damage profile. At least there's a good number of attachments. 9 receivers, 5 barrels, a custom grip, a couple of magazine choices, and there's 357 and 12.7mm options if you use the Munitions version of the mod, which you should be since the vanilla version is broken, 3 different sights, a compensator, suppressor, and 5 different materials that can be applied to various parts of the weapon. It's a pretty decent selection, and I like how it stays lore-friendly. The optics all have West Tech logos instead of real-life EOTech or Acupoint ones like most other mods. That's very nice. If there were more attachments and the classic holstered weapons and bashing issues were fixed up, this would be an excellent mod, but even as it is, it's good enough to beat the competition. Second, we've got the Desert Eagle Standalone Handgun. This mod is from way back in 2016, but it's still quite popular, so there are Munitions and Caliber Complex patches available. It doesn't have any unique variants or pre-placed spawns, but it does have leveled list injection. You can find this weapon on gunners, raiders, and at vendors. This weapon's appearance leaves a lot to be desired. The model has some weird smoothing issue on the barrel, and the texture is way too over-sharpened. Worse still, it's using vanilla deliverer animations. The balancing is a little on the overpowered side for the same reasons as our last mod. It is somewhat better though because this Desert Eagle has more weight and a higher action point cost, but it still makes the base game's revolvers obsolete. There aren't that many attachments for this weapon. Sadly, we've only got 9 receivers, 2 barrels, 3 grips, just 4 magazine options, glow sights and a reflex sight, a flashlight that can be toggled with an ingestible, gold and silver materials with engravings available for either, and caliber conversions to 38 and 50 caliber. Overall, this is a decent, functional weapon. If you can find a retexture for it, and a good deliverer animation pack, you'll have a good time. Certainly when it came out, it was the best option available, but in 2023 there are better choices. Third, we've got the IMI 50AE Desert Eagle. This mod comes in 2K and 4K texture versions. Obviously get that 2K version. Don't forget the 1.01 update you'll need to download, and for non-NVIDIA cards, grab the Purple Scopes patch 2. This weapon has 3 unique variants. One called Nighthawk, which does radiation damage, can be found at Boston Mayoral Shelter. Another named Opposing Force can be found at the Railroad HQ, and Yuri can be found inside Gorski's cabin. The base weapon is injected into leveled lists, but it's only on gunners and vendors, starting from level 15. This Desert Eagle has the best looking model so far, but unfortunately for whatever reason its world model has a spare magazine floating next to it. This presents problems if you want to display this weapon at a settlement or use it with classic holstered weapons. Thankfully there's a patch available to fix this problem, which I've linked in the description. The weapon has its own custom animations in first person, but uses deliverer animations in third person, both in and out of power armor. The weapon also uses its own 50 AE ammunition, but being a popular mod, of course it has a munitions patch. Naming rules don't seem to be properly set up for this gun. Adding attachments doesn't give you prefixes like compensated or suppressed, but that's not a big deal. The balancing is just as poor as the last 2 mods. These Desert Eagles do too much damage and don't have enough downsides. There is a pretty good number of attachments though, 8 receivers, 2 barrels, 2 grips, 5 tritium sight colors, 5 scopes, a compensator, 2 suppressors, some really overpowered ammo types, a flashlight, laser sight, reticle styles, and 5 finishes. Yeah, this is a pretty okay option. If the new Magnum Autoloader mod didn't exist, this one would probably win, even though it's not particularly amazing. Fourth, we've got the Desert Eagle from the Combined Arms weapon pack. This Desert Eagle is basically a side-graded version of the previous mod. The uniques have been removed, but it's still injected into the same leveled lists. The model, texture, and animations remain exactly the same as the last mod, but thankfully the spare magazine isn't part of the world model anymore. Balancing is pretty much the same as before, there's not much to say there. Naming rules are still messed up, but at least this iteration of the weapon features all the attachments of the standalone version and then some. There's an extra barrel, a tactical stock, some more ammo types, and stickers. Wow. So if you don't mind being saddled with 13 other weapons of varying quality, the Combined Arms Desert Eagle is an okay choice. It's about on par with its standalone release. Fifth, we have the IMI Desert Eagle, quite possibly the worst weapon on this list. This weapon has no unique variants and no leveled list integration. You can only find it at the National Guard Armory, the Switchboard, and a few other places. The model looks okay, but the hammer isn't cocked properly, and it uses weak-ass vanilla 44 pistol firing sounds. I don't mind the custom first-person animations, they actually look okay, but in third person the weapon is completely unusable. The gun parts are exploded, and it is not possible to move forward. I'm holding W right now, but the game is forcibly moving me to the left. Interestingly, in third-person power armor, the weapon's parts are not exploded, but it still isn't possible to jog when holding this weapon. It's possible to fix the exploded gun issue by renaming an animation folder, but that doesn't fix the movement issue in third person, so it's not worth bothering with. For attachments, this gun has 3 receivers and a reflex sight. Yep, that's it. It's also super overpowered and barely has any recoil. Also, for no reason at all, this mod edits the vanilla deliverer, but makes no changes. I suppose it was an accidental edit, but that's yet another knock against this mod. I have nothing left to say about it, certainly nothing good, so let's just move on. Sixth, we've got a mod that's not on the Nexus called Desert Eagle Final Release. There's only a Mediafire link to this one. It's installed with a foam mod that explains it's using assets ported from other games, so you can't distribute it, blah blah blah. This weapon has no leveled list injection, or unique variants, or even pre-placed spawns. You have to cheat this gun in to acquire it. The first-person model is fine, and it's using the same animations as the third and fourth mods on this list. For some reason, in third person outside of power armor, the magazine is upside down, and when holstered, it has the same floating magazine bug the third mod has. There's no patch to fix these issues. The weapon is also very overpowered, and doesn't have any attachments other than a few model swaps, so yeah, it's not really worth downloading. It feels like an unfinished base for other people to work on, but that work never happened, and never will at this point. 7th, we've got the mod A Collection of Eagles Reloaded. This mod adds 2 unique weapons, one called Jack the Reaper, which can be found at Quincy Quarries, and another called Soda's Pistol, which can be found in Diamond City inside of the safe. There's also a master-locked container underwater at Reeb Marina that contains an auto trigger, which unlocks fully automatic modifications for these Desert Eagles. On top of all that, ordinary Desert Eagles are injected into leveled lists and can be found on vendors, gunners, raider bosses, and triggermen. Unfortunately, NPCs are mostly incapable of using these Desert Eagles because the NPC add ammo list hasn't been populated. Any enemy that spawns with this mod's guns will charge at you with their fists instead of trying to shoot you. Another problem with these guns is their awful grating firing sound, and exaggerated materials. Matte black parts appear far too matte, and polished parts are far too shiny. This should have been toned down a lot. These Deagles can either use deliverer animations or a much better custom first-person animation set. The custom animations look good, but they don't work properly in power armor. Instead, we get different custom animations that have mismatched reload sounds. And third person will always use deliverer animations regardless. The guns use their own ammo types, which is a problem for Munitions users since there is some overlap with Munitions and there's no patch available to fix it. Like every other mod on this list, these Desert Eagles are overpowered, but they have some crazy recoil to at least try to balance out the high damage. You can either use weaker 357 rounds to negate the recoil, or use these weapons in VATS, since recoil doesn't matter there. I was quite impressed with the number of attachments available for these weapons. There's 2 different barrels, one of which has a rail, 12 ornamental grips, extended magazines, a short scope and reflex sight, 3 internals, a custom animation set, different materials for various parts of the weapon, there's caliber conversions, and a full auto trigger assembly. This mod would actually be a pretty good choice if it received an update to address some of its problems, but there's not much chance of that happening now. What a shame. 8th, we have the Modern Warfare 50 BGS Submod, which I've already reviewed before, and my opinion still stands. If you want a gun that you can't properly use in third person or power armor, have at it, but this mod is still not for me. I don't feel the need to give this mod the in-depth treatment again, so I'll leave it at that. And that's the end of the video. I'm sorry it ended up being so short. I wanted to release a video on Starfield performance mods this week as well, but I couldn't find any mods that do much to reduce its insane CPU usage. Also, because the game is so new, any advice I give will quickly become outdated anyways. I'm shelving Starfield for now. When we get some actual modding tools and good mods start coming out, I'll go back, but until then, it's gonna be Fallout o'clock. Toodles, everybody.